Marley from the Energy Boutique with your energy and ascension forecast for Sunday, March 9th to Saturday, March 15th. Okay, so last week, of course, we kicked the door down. We busted into March. We wasted no time. We had Venus go retrograde on the 1st. Many of us, again, in a funk. May I remind you, we are in Pisces season, the last sign of the zodiac, where death endings and closures need to happen in order for beginnings to actually present themselves when we jump into Aries season and we kick off the new astrological calendar. Now, Venus going retrograde in Aries energy, of course, has kind of ruffled some feathers, especially among the divine feminine energies. We're not effing around. There's some Aries energy there that is Mars's domain. And of course, Venus being in Mars's domain, we're a little bit spicy. We are definitely not messing around. We are definitely not falling for some of the things that we continue to fall for, especially giving our power away, especially where codependent relationships are concerned. Venus's whole retrograde is supposed to be us going through the darkness for 40 days and 40 nights in order to beat ourselves up, break ourselves down so that we can emerge as this new version of self when this is all said and done. And of course, there's a major reflection, major revisiting to relationship dynamics so that we can see how we've given our power away time and time and time again, where it is that, again, we've been dimming our light in order to make other people seem a lot more shinier than they actually are. And where our self-worth is concerned, we have to analyze why we attract the people that we do based off of how we feel about ourselves. So when I say that most people don't enjoy Pisces season because of the shadow work, when I say that most people don't enjoy any kind of retrogrades because of the shadow work, everybody is definitely feeling beat up and broken down at this particular juncture because, again, we have more endings and closures, more reflection to do, more shadow work to do now than ever before. So, again, we kicked down the door to March giving us the vibration of 3. March definitely focused on where we have to shift our headspace, shift our heart space, kind of flip the script and build ourselves up in a much better way. And again, Venus is retrograde, not messing around. Of course, Mercury, ruler of the mental plane, busted into this Aries energy on the 3rd. This is why there's a lot of spice going on in our headspace, rapid processing, a lot of verbal vomit coming out of our mouths, no filter being used because Aries energy, again, fire. We have a lot to say. We have a lot that doesn't even make sense to us that for some reason we feel like sharing before we have a complete thought. Mercury, of course, is gaining closer and closer proximity to his retrograde point. We'll talk about that in just a second. But just know that, fire, water, there's a lot going on. There's a lot bubbling and boiling under the surface. And again, because the Pisces energy is about endings and closures, because the Aries energy is about beginnings and starting something new, there's a tug of war going on in our inner realm and in our outer realm as well. We just had the first quarter moon in Gemini pop off here yesterday on the 6th, which of course put a lot of pressure in that headspace. Again, we're kind of still working under this new moon Pisces lunar energy. That first quarter moon pressurized us to take action, to make moves, even if it was just in our headspace, to kind of start leaning towards a new path, new choice, new decision point over the old. Now, granted, we are kind of moving out of that head intensity because here today, we, of course, on the 7th, are edging our way into the moon in Cancer. And this is definitely going to have a lot of emotions rising to the surface just when you thought that you couldn't be any more overwhelmed by your thoughts, by your emotions, just being in Pisces season. Now we have the moon moving into her rulership in Cancer energy, adding to the water in the elemental energy profile that we're currently sitting in. And you best believe we are going to go through an emotional ocean point for the next couple of days. Of course, we will be shifting into Leo energy on Sunday, March 9th. That is definitely going to help dry us off from some of the emotions that we are going to be overwhelmed and oversaturated with over the next couple of days. But you best believe that this particular energetic process is preparing us for some major events taking place here this week. May I also just kind of mention, this past week we had 3 moon days, which is very strange, very weird. Moon days are days where all of the aspects involve the moon, and that is a day of emotional refinement, emotional realignment, and recalibration. We've had 3 of them. Now, remember that, because I'm going to start talking about this week. What do we got going on this week? We have 3 more moon days. Talk about emotional purging, okay? These moon days are happening at a very interesting point in the calendar, because what do we got going on this week, you may ask? The full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo energy. Now, that is going to be the detox purge point. That is going to be when some feathers get ruffled if they weren't ruffled already. This is where fated events and pivot points are going to emerge. And because it's a full moon, there's going to be a full illumination of hidden information, hidden details that were right in front of our face this whole freaking time. But we didn't have the consciousness, we didn't have the awareness, we didn't have the eyes to see or the ears to hear it. We are definitely coming online here under this eclipse energy. This is a lunar eclipse, so typically speaking, lunar energy removes or subtracts something out of our lives. It is about release. It is about a purge. And because this is a semi-new karmic chapter that we're working on this Virgo and Pisces axis, it's probably going to feel very uncomfortable, very foreign to us because, well, we haven't done this in about 18 years. Especially not with some of the other energy aspects taking place, specifically Shoto. I'm talking to you, Mr. Saturn, Mr. Neptune, and of course, the North Node, they're all in Pisces energy. Thus why we're having this lunar eclipse on this Virgo Pisces axis. So as if that wasn't enough, on the 15th, because again, full moon lunar eclipse taking place on the 14th, technically speaking, depending on where it is that you're at in the world, could be 13th, 14th. And then to follow that on the 14th, 15th, depending on where it is that you're at in the world, Mercury, who rules over this particular lunar eclipse in Virgo energy, Mercury is going to retrograde 24 hours later under the eclipse energies. Now, my freaking goodness, we're all going to need to put our energetic helmets on because this is going to be an absolute shit show. Not trying to fearmonger, just trying to keep it real. We are going to dive into what this is going to mean for us. Of course, we are definitely going to be triggered and activated many, many times over here this week in order to kind of do the shadow work that many of us have been avoiding, running away from, resisting at all costs. We're not going to have a choice about it. And with all of these moon days kind of building us up to this lunar eclipse event, you best believe that all of the darkest parts of our fears, doubts, insecurities, of our ego programming, of our emotions, of our mentality, of our spirituality, it is going to rise to the surface of our awareness. It's going to be so in our face that we cannot ignore it in order for that breakthrough energy under that eclipse to take it out of our bodies. Okay, so it is going to be very uncomfortable. We definitely need to prepare for that. So I will go into a little bit more depth and detail on what it is that we can expect from the energy this week. But before I do so, just have a couple of things that I would like to cross off my list. Starting with the thank yous. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for liking, for sharing, for commenting, for dropping emojis in the comment section below, making it a very beautiful place to scroll through here in this beautiful community that we are building. Just want to thank you for giving your time, your energy, your attention, not only to me, but to yourself. People keep saying, I show up for you. I show up for you. I'm here. I'm supporting you. Guys, I thank you for that. But my goal is to make you be invested in your own healing journey. And so again, let's call this a reciprocal type of energy exchange. Thank you for showing up for me. But I, for one, am more grateful that you're showing up for yourself. So thank you so much to each and every single one of you for being here. Good news. I've had a couple of people reach out this week to say that my videos are now being kind of promoted on their page, on their feed. I've had a couple of people say that they no longer have to go looking for my content, which gives me a little bit of a glimmer or shimmer of hope that the new algorithm that YouTube has put out and has been testing is hopefully going to start working in my favor. I say that with a lot of hesitation, but also with a lot of positivity. I'm going to infuse the affirmations that I've been saying to try and get my algorithm up and going again, my message to be seen and heard. I would love to find myself back into a situation in a circumstance that I once was about a year ago, with this YouTube channel and reaching more people, because more people are coming online, more people are needing this information. I've definitely noticed a shift in people needing a little bit more energetic support now than ever before. And you know what? That's okay. It means that we are collectively healing. And so what I mean by that is that over on my Patreon, which I would definitely encourage you to jump over and be a part of, even as a free member, not only do you get ad-free videos and content, but you get free previews of all the other paid content as well. And of course, it's just nice to kind of have our own little, semi-private community kind of building over there as well. But over on my Patreon, I've been making some changes. I kind of talked about some of the changes that I've been trying to make over the last couple of weeks here in this Ascension forecast. But this week, I tried something new, and it's putting out daily Ascension symptom reports, updates, forecasts, remedies, and resources. And what I've noticed over this past week, not only has my existing community come a little bit more alive over there, a lot more activity, a lot more engagement over there, but that people are really enjoying the day by day, play by play with the energy symptoms that they can kind of expect from the day. We're talking about why they happen, what is happening cosmically speaking in order to trigger these particular Ascension symptoms, some of the resources and remedies that we can tap into to kind of lessen the blow, so to speak. And what I've been realizing over this past week is that, again, it seems that the community, the collective, needs a little bit more assistance, more reassurance, more understanding of this ascension process, of these symptoms and what to do about it. A lot of people are becoming very, I'm going to call it disabled by these ascension symptoms. And again, that's a very unfortunate part of the process when you're newly awakened and kind of learning how to navigate your central nervous system and understanding what is actually happening to you. It is a very unfortunate part of the process. But what I'm recognizing is that people need an extra little oomph of assistance and assurance at this particular time. So what I'm getting at is that I'm changing the structure of the way that I deliver information and what information I'm actually delivering. And so if you're someone who is super sensitive and you need a little bit more help, a little bit more resource, a little bit more support than what it is that you're getting from my daily energy forecast videos, please consider jumping over to Patreon. Please consider joining the community. I'm literally putting out daily support content to help us get through these particular energy shifts. And when I say to you that you're probably going to need to lean a little bit harder on those particular posts and resources this week as we kind of get sucked into the eclipse energy, I'm not joking. I'm not fear-mongering. If you need help, if you need resources, if you need support, you know where we're at. Jump over to Patreon and we will ride this wave together. So for those of you that are already on my Patreon, again, thank you so much for the feedback. Thank you so much for becoming a little bit more engaged with the content, letting me know what it is that you all really want, what you need at this particular juncture. I will continue to kind of make some tweaks and changes to not only the content that I put out, but who can access what. And so again, I appreciate the patience and the understanding and the love and support as I'm trying to tweak what I've been doing to kind of help adapt to what the collective needs. And so thank you to each and every single one of you that is making the jump over to my Patreon. For those of you that have downloaded the March Energy Guide, you're going to want to have that very close to you here this week as we kind of enter into these moon days, as we get sucked into this lunar eclipse vortex. And of course, as Mercury decides to go retrograde. This is going to be a pivotal week of mind and heart shifting. And it is definitely recommended if you don't have that resource, that don't have that zodiac guide in front of you for the month of March, that you get on it. Download it, get it in front of you. We have so much coming at us. This is the craziest, most chaotic month of the whole freaking year. It would be highly advisable that you stay ahead of the game, that you stay in alignment with these energies, because again, it is always better to roll than be dragged. Because we just had this first quarter moon in Gemini pop off here yesterday, that's an indicator that we are making our way to the halfway point of this lunar cycle that, of course, we kicked off under that new moon in Pisces. If you do not have the new moon in Pisces moon guide, the manifesting guide available in front of you, definitely going to recommend that you download that you get caught up, because again, we're still sitting in the first quarter moon Gemini energy here today. We are going to be moving into the waxing gibbous part of building towards the full moon. That is going to be the halfway point of this manifesting cycle. There's a lot of controversy over whether or not we should be manifesting in eclipse energies. I, for one, believe that it's not so much about manifesting, and especially with those routines and practices under a full moon lunar eclipse, as it is holding the vision of what it is that we would love to see manifest and be open, surrender to, flexible to a lot of the fated karmic events that are going to be thrown at us like just curveballs the minute that we start stepping into this eclipse energy. And so with eclipses, of course, we're not in control. We're at the mercy of the cosmos. The universe is about to sort us out, put us on the path that we failed to put ourselves upon. And again, just a reminder, I have plenty of resources over on my Patreon through Astro Class about not only what these eclipse events are all about, not only about the axis, the karmic chapters that we're working with, but where to find it in your chart and how to understand how, not only the eclipse event is going to really impact your life, but the retrogrades on top of that are going to impact your life as well. And if you're just like, you know what, that's a lot of work, I really don't want to get into that, I would just like to be told what's going on, you can definitely book a session with me. I have a new special service out specifically for your retrograde and eclipse story. Because again, may I remind you, this is taking us all the way into April 12th. Okay, so April 12th is when we're going to have the full moon in Libra, which is going to officially close the door on this eclipse energy. And that day is also the day that Venus, who rules over that Libra energy, will be going direct. So from now until April 12th, we're kind of, being tossed around like a rag doll in a washer machine by the universe, by the cosmos. We are at the mercy of these fated events. And if you want to have a little bit of a grip and an understanding of where your retrograde / eclipse story is taking place in your chart, I would be happy to kind of, give you all the information that you need so that you can focus your time, energy, and attention on the areas of life that demand that time, energy, and attention the most. So you can jump over to my website. You will see that in the services drop-down menu. I'll put it at the top. It is going to be just a special service that I'm offering from now until, I don't know, probably the new moon in Aries. That's going to be that solar eclipse that closes the door officially on the last 18 months of us learning on the Aries and Libran axis, because of course we are full-blown into the Pisces Virgo axis as of this full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. So we're definitely kind of, I'm going to say, bridging the gap between this particular transition. And not that I want to get on to a huge rant about this at this particular juncture, but me with patterns, and I like to call the patterns out because patterns to me are significant. And seeing as, of course, we're in a simulation and everything is coded and we're just repeating the same similar cycles and seasons and patterns of the past, we can learn a lot from that. So when I say to you that this being the second week of having 3 moon days taking place in this week, that is highly significant to me. That is a special pattern that sticks out like a sore thumb to me, specifically because it's happening as we build towards, again, this lunar eclipse event. The other thing that I thought was super interesting, taking a look at this week's energy, is that on Friday, March 14th, when many of us, the majority of us, will be having that full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo event, it's interesting to me because we reached that peak potency at 2:55 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we do have a couple of pop-offs that continue in that Virgo energy. And then the moon will go void, of course, later in the day, like early evening. And then we shift into Libra energy. And why I think that is super interesting, because if you could think of these planets as characters in a story, which, that's the way that I explain astrology. For the last 18 months, we've been on this karmic chapter, this axis of Aries and Libra. So that means that Mars and Venus, they've been on stage not only for the last 18 months, but to the previous 18 months before that, because the nodes of the moon previous to that was on the Taurus and Scorpio axis. And of course, Venus rules over Taurus energy, Mars co-rules over that Scorpio energy. And then we shifted into the Aries and Libran axis, which again, Mars and Venus, rules over those particular aspects. But now Mars and Venus have essentially passed the baton, so to speak, to Mercury and Neptune. Now, why that's interesting and why that's funny, first of all, Mercury rules over Virgo energy, thus why he's ruling over this full moon lunar eclipse that we have coming at us. Neptune, of course, rules over the Pisces energy. Neptune is like our higher, let's call it creative mind, our spiritual mind. It is the part of us that connects to dreams and creativity, imagination and fantasy, connects to the higher realms of intelligence, connects us to our spirituality. It's all of those things. Well, Mercury, on the other hand, he rules over the lowest level of our intellect that connects us to our ego identity. And thus why I went into the depths in which I did back in the fall when I did a full review on this eclipse season that we're now moving into on this Pisces and Virgo axis. We spent a lot of time talking about that particular exchange because Mercury specifically ruling over this Virgo event, which is a lunar eclipse, removing something out of our lives. This has everything to do with removing the control that as ego avatars, we feel like we need to have control over knowing all the answers, knowing what comes next, control over our physical environment, control over anything and everything that we absolutely can convince ourselves that we have control over. Because the truth is, and Neptune and Pisces knows this, we have control over nothing, right? Everything is just merely an illusion. That's where that Neptune and Pisces energy is. And so again, with the North Node being in Pisces energy, the whole point of this is to surrender, to trust something greater than yourself, to trust that if you have faith and you trust in yourself and the greater, grander plan of the cosmos, that there's no need to wreck your brain. There's no need to have anxiety. There's no need to have control issues. There's no need to keep yourself awake at night trying to sort out the pros and cons of all the different variables of how things could go, because at the end of the day, things never unfold in the way that you anticipate that they would anyways. So why are we wasting all of this time, energy, and attention on things that, typically speaking, we want to feel like we're in control of, but typically we have no control whatsoever. We got to let go and let God, right? And so this is going to be a tough love life lesson for the collective, specifically if you're a Gemini or a Virgo, because again, Mercury rules over Geminis and Virgos. So that's going to be a hard ticket. Any placements on the mutable axis, so Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces, y'all are going through the ringer because this is squaring off your natal placements. But we're all going through it. And again, very important to understand where all of this is taking place in your chart. And if you're interested in doing the work, by all means, there are mini courses and astro classes that will help you kind of do a deep dive and understand how to figure that stuff over yourself. But then, again, sideline to that, if you want to skip all of that and just be told where this information needs to kind of, have your attention, I'm happy to do that. Book a session and we'll go through it. I digress. On March 14th, when we kind of passed the baton from the Virgo energy to the Libra energy, that is Mercury saying, okay, I did my part. I don't want to hold this baton for very much longer. Here you go, Libra energy. Now you hold it. Now, why that's interesting is because we're still in the eclipse energy. We're still in the full moon energy, but Venus isn't really, in power or in control over any of this eclipse events. And when you take a look at Venus, where is she? Well, she's in the depths of her darkness. She's in the underworld. She's in a retrograde. So she's retrograding 40 days and 40 nights in the depths of her own soul, in the depths of her own darkness, in order to kind of beat down the quote unquote demons that keep us holding ourselves back from truly being our authentic selves, from truly loving and appreciating and feeling deserving and worthy of all the things that we want. Again, this is a rebuilding of our worth, of our values, of our happiness, of our joy, of our relationships, of our financial situation. And yet, again, under eclipse energies, we're at the mercy of the cosmos. So I find it very interesting that, again, that baton gets passed very quickly after we peak in that eclipse energy over to the moon in Libra, which of course Venus rules. And then, like I mentioned, the next day, Mercury is peacing out. He's retrograding. So it's a very interesting dynamic. And again, this has been a Pisces season like no other. I knew it would be. If you need to go back and listen to the energy overview that I put out for Pisces season, we definitely knew we were going to be put through the ringer, so to speak. And many of us are getting very tired of that particular ringer, understandably, but this is not a time to give up. You don't find yourself in hell and say, hey, this is a lovely place in hell. I think I'm going to set up here. You push through it. You know, you don't stop in the middle of hell. You continue to go so that you can come on the other side of it. And so, again, a lot of the tug of war, a lot of the push-pull that's going on right now is because the old world is collapsing and the new one hasn't been visibly, I'm going to say, safe, secure, stable enough for us to be actually living in. So the tug of war not only is going on between the structures of the old world versus the new world, but also the version of self that built that old world, lived in it, contributed to it, and of course has no want, need, or desire to resonate with anything that belongs to it any longer. We want to kind of boss up. We want to make moves. We want to be the creators of our own realities. And of course, that's what we're building towards. But man, we are definitely going through it. So let's talk about some of the Ascension symptoms that we can expect this week, because again, going to be no joke. Again, reminder, if you need extra assistance and you're not getting the kind of assistance or support or, you know, confirmation or validation from these daily energy forecasts that I put out, jump over to Patreon. Literally, we have no excuse to be feeling crazy. We have no excuse to be feeling confused about what's going on. There are a multitude of resources to reassure to you. This is why you feel cray-cray, even though you're not. This is what you're going through. This is why your body feels the way that you do. And here's what you can do about it to lessen the symptoms. So again, if you need that kind of assistance or support, jump over to Patreon. Our community over there definitely has your back. Okay, so let's talk about it. The mental and emotional overload. Now, it's funny because many of us are so overwhelmed that we feel nothing. But yet when we realize that we feel nothing, suddenly everything floods back and we're like, oh yeah, oh no, I definitely feel all of the things. Now, considering the fact that we're in Pisces season, that we have a lot of energies built up in Pisces energy, I feel like it's a good reminder to kind of talk about the fact that, you know, we numb ourselves in Pisces energy. It is the escape artist of the zodiac. We have no want, need, or desire to take part in reality. We would love to just kind of check out, disassociate altogether, live in la la land until this particular discomfort passes. Now, is that the right way to do things? Absolutely not. Is the same shit show going to be there once Pisces season passes if you don't wake up and do the work? Absolutely it is. So unfortunately, although we are exhausted, although we are mentally and emotionally overwhelmed and overstimulated and literally feel like we've just been beat down and beat up in every which way, now is not the time to just sit back and let things flow. Now is the time to be doing the work. And when I say not, you know, when you're not supposed to sit back and let things flow, I'm not talking about the external realm. Okay. I'm not talking about the physical realm. I'm talking about the inner realm. This is a time where our soul and our spirit is going through the major change and transformation needed in order for us to be this more authentic version of self, so that when we jump into Aries season and the new astrological calendar kicks off and we're renewed and refueled and restored and refreshed in our soul and our spirit, then we know exactly what needs to be done. But if you go to the length of avoidance, that typically speaking is the darker parts of what Pisces energy could manifest as, you are only going to prolong the mess that you have to clean up before you're going to be able to move on and move forward into that new world, into that new form of reality in which you're looking to build, what you're looking to create. So again, now is the time to double down, to lean in, to do the work. And I know that that is overwhelming to some people, but again, you're a spiritual warrior. You don't see the spiritual warriors out on the battlefield slicing through their enemies, crying about the emotional work in which they need to do. We got to boss up, okay? And I know I say this every week, time in, time out. But at the same time, you get a lot of people that just do not understand that, you know, we are light warriors. We are here to do the hard things. And the hardest things for some people is to sit in silence and sit with yourself and to be accountable and responsible for the part in which you played in creating the shit show that is your life that you currently want to escape from. And so again, the change that you want to see in your exterior realm starts within you. You cannot have the same emotional disposition, the same understanding, the same perspective, and get any kind of different result other than the ones in which you currently have. If you want a different result, you have to do things differently. In order to do things differently, you have to have a different belief system. And in order to have a different belief system, you have to sit and examine the current belief system in which you have and understand that everything that you have manifested, good, bad, or otherwise, has been created from, has stemmed from that particular belief system. So in order to change your reality, you have to change your mind, you have to change your heart space, you have to change your vibration and frequency, you have to change the level that you are operating at in your consciousness and in your awareness. And that requires a lot of time, energy, and effort to look inward, to call yourself out on the bullshit, to do the work. That's what I mean when I say doing the work. Stop running from yourself. Stop trying to numb yourself. Stop trying to distract yourself. Do the work. Be accountable. Be responsible. Look at yourself in the mirror. Make contact with your eyeballs. That's the soul, okay? Stare at yourself in the mirror. I can guarantee you your natural disposition is going to be to want to look away within 3 seconds. Most people cannot hold that stare in their eyeballs, looking at their soul self for more than a minute. I would challenge you to do that. This is what mirror work is all about, right? So again, you have to kind of challenge yourself to move into those uncomfortable areas of life, to sit in the discomfort of it, and to not run away from it. That's what Pisces season is all about. So of course, the mental and emotional overload, first of all, is happening because we cannot run, we cannot hide. We have to face it. We have to face the confusion, the negative ass narratives in our headspace. We have to confront the narrow-minded perspective that many of us have been sitting in. We have to address the emotions that are absolutely swallowing us up whole at this particular juncture in order to actually do something about it. So yes, there's been a lot of head pressure. We knew that there would be, especially building in that first quarter moon activation in Gemini energy. When you know that Mercury is involved, Mercury rules over the headspace. Therefore, any Virgo or Gemini activation is going to put an applied pressure in that headspace. It manifests in different ways. You could have a headache. You could have a moving headache. You could have sinus issues. You could have a stiff neck, which basically just means that your bobble head weighs 400 pounds trying to balance on your body. There's all kinds of ways that this could manifest. But at the end of the day, we're having this head pressure because the third eye is going through a major recalibration, which means that we're able to understand, to perceive, to actually see more going on in the unseen realms than ever before. Our central nervous system is highly overwhelmed at this particular point, going through this recalibration to open us up to be a little bit more aware of not only the let's call it color spectrum that our eyes are visually able to pick up on, but sound spectrum as well. Our ears are kind of fine tuning to a higher vibration and frequency that our normal bodies weren't able to hear, weren't able to perceive. I kind of put it to you this way. You know, there's devices out there like whistles or like this beeping sound that you as a human can't hear, but like a dog could hear very, very well, so much so that they use that as an obedient training tool to get them to stop barking or what have you. It's kind of like that. There is a whole world of visual and audio situations and circumstances going on in other dimensions that overlap our particular plane of existence, happening all the time, that we cannot perceive because the electrical currents in our brains aren't rapidly firing enough in order for us to perceive those particular vibrations and frequencies. And so when we're going through this ascension process, it's about purging out the old pain and trauma codes in our physical form that create the energy blockages that, you know, block the meridian channels from taking the information in from the higher realms of intelligence and taking information in from Mother Earth herself. We are conduits of energy. And if those meridian channels are blocked up, junked up, then we're going to have pain. We're going to have discomfort in order to bring attention and awareness to that particular juncture of the body so that we can do something about it, free that up so that we can be a free-flowing conduit of energy. So the third eye is opening up for us to be able to perceive the unseen world in ways that we haven't kind of been, you know, picking up on before. We have different things going on in our sensory input station, which is our central nervous system, in order for us to be able to, again, see outside of the normal range of the color spectrum that we were used to operating within, and, in the audio field as well. And that's no joke. There is a literal rewiring of the synapses of the brain firing off, okay? Little electrical currents snapping off all the time in our brain, in our headspace. That's why it hurts. That's why it feels like your head is going to explode at times, because you're housing more electrical current in your physical forms, specifically in your headspace now than ever before. So, of course, that headspace, that pressure, that rapid processing of racing thoughts and over-analyzing things and trying to shift your perspective and trying to flip the script and trying to understand what it is that you're going through, that is only going to intensify here this week, specifically because the Virgo energy that we have this full moon lunar eclipse taking place in is the analyzer of the zodiac. It is the healer of the zodiac as well. We have to kind of analyze, reassess what is going on for us, what is working, what is not, what is supporting us, what is not. We have to weigh the pros and cons of that. And then we have to go through the elimination process in order to remove all the junk and the gunk that we have already kind of analyzed and deemed is not supporting us. Specifically, with some badass habits. And because Pisces energy sits on the opposite axis, we're talking about obsession, addiction, numbing, escapism, avoidance. And we all do it, okay? Especially with our phones. When you are overstimulated and your head is wackadoodle and you're feeling the pressure in your headspace, the best thing that you can do is limit the stimulation that you're bringing in. Get off your phone. Get off the screen. Right? The phone and the screen are the number one reasons of why most of us are wackadoodle in the first place. We have never been connected to so much information, to so many people at any given time that, again, if you don't understand that our little cell phones here have been designed and constructed in order to keep us as zombie beings, being stuck in this little square thing that rules over our lives. Not only is it set up with technology that messes with our circadian rhythm and messes with our own brain functioning, but it's keeping us consumed with things going on in the world that have always gone on in the world that you just didn't know about because you didn't have access to that information. And again, through the awakening process, most people dive right into the esoteric knowledge. Most people want to know about spiritualism and star seeds and the ascension symptoms without addressing the lower chakras. Those lower chakras keep you in their physical body. You need to know yourself. You need to have a stable, strong, secure foundation, grounding practices, hygiene practices in order to not move into spiritual psychosis with all the information that you're bringing in and making your headspace spin every single moment of every single day because you are an information junkie. Is it a bad thing to be an information junkie? No, absolutely not. But when you don't have a stable, grounded, rooted energy, you're just going to be bouncing around. You're going to put yourself in the nut house. That's just matter of fact. We're in Pisces season. Spiritual psychosis is on the rise. Thank you, Neptune and Mr. Saturn being in Pisces for that. We have a spiritual crisis taking place. Okay, we cannot ignore that fact. And a lot of the craziness that is going on in the world is due to people awakening with no foundation, no sense of self, no grounding or spiritual hygiene practices at all. And they just continue to bring information in, drop down this rabbit hole, go down this rabbit hole, and then wonder why they are suffering greatly with the ascension symptoms. It's because you're not anchored, you're not grounded. And so many people have reached out to me saying, oh, I'm spending all this time meditating and grounding and I can't feel better. I just feel floaty and disassociative. Okay, well, let's take a look at that. You're grounding, you're trying to ground. And again, grounding is just coming into your body and being connected to the 5 senses of the body, which most people overlook altogether. Secondary to that, you're looking to ground in a time and in a season when there's more water than anything else. How can you feel safe and secure and stable in the middle of the emotional ocean that is choppy as F? What are you grounding to? Because if you're grounding to Mother Earth right now, she's in an uproar as well. She's being tossed around in her own ascension process. So why would you ground to an unstable, unanchored energy and expect to feel better? That's not what this name of the game is. We're in Pisces season. The name of the game is to be flexible and adaptable and surrender to go with the flow. And so again, a lot of misinformation, misunderstandings around what a grounding practice actually is. Again, side note to this, if you are confused or you need help or you need assistance or support in that particular area, jump over to my Patreon. I give you different tasks, different things that you can try each and every single day, depending on the ascension symptom in which we are expected to have due to the cosmic energy that we are receiving throughout that day. And so a lot of people are just frustrated with the fact that they're, spending all this time in meditation. Well, meditation doesn't anchor you into your body. It gets you out of your body. So again, I don't understand what people are expecting coming from this quote unquote grounding and meditative practice that they are throwing themselves into, when realistically speaking, grounding means being present, anchored in this present moment in your physical form, connected to the five senses. The easiest grounding practice that you can do is become aware of your physical body, as uncomfortable as it may be. Connect to the things, like 5 things you can touch. 4 things you can hear, 3 things that you can see, and then work your way down the central nervous system. Touch on each of those senses, become aware of your physical body, of your physical environment, and you're not going to feel like you're floating off and that you're cray-cray, because again, you've grounded and anchored into the physical form instead of trying to escape it or trying to align with Mother Earth at this particular juncture, which again, she's in her own emotional ocean, being tossed around, going through her own ascension process. You cannot ground in water. You float in water. You surrender in water. You swim in water. And so again, there's just a lot of people desperately holding on to this generalized information that of course is out into the world, but don't really understand how to do it or how to, implement it, and specifically with what energies are currently swirling. And trust me, there's some energies swirling, and it's only going to get more and more intense as we move throughout the week. So I wanted to talk about the physical exhaustion, the muscle cramps, the muscle tension, the muscle spasms that we're currently having. Let me just remind you, we've been out in the middle of the ocean being tossed around like a rag doll since the beginning of Pisces season. We've been treading water, and I don't know about you all, but you can only tread water so much until you become fatigued. Thus, why Pisces season encourages you to learn how to float and surrender, right? If you were out stranded in the middle of the ocean, you cannot tread water. You will be exhausted. You do have to learn to lay on your back, to put your eyes to the sky, to trust that the waves, the force of the energy, and God himself is going to shift you into the direction that the waves will carry you home in. And so again, we are becoming physically exhausted with these muscle cramps and spasms and tremors because again, we've been wading water for weeks now. And it doesn't feel good, but we do have to kind of realize that there's other ways that we can survive out in this emotional ocean without constantly having to tread water and keep our head above that water level. We can learn to float. We can learn to surrender. We can learn to trust the process. And when you realize that going with the flow is actually not requiring as much physical energy from you as going against the current, then suddenly we are in a totally different situation, a totally different survival situation as well. And so, there's a lot to think about when you're stranded out there in the ocean, trying to keep your head above water. And because Venus just entered her retrograde and there's a lot of reflection, there is some weird memories coming back, especially in the context of relationships. There are, when they say when Venus retrogrades, like, oh, look out for old lovers or old exes, they're going to be coming back. They don't necessarily have to come back in physical form. You could have a dream about them, or suddenly something triggers you in the run of your day and you're flashed back to 15 years ago when you were in said relationship that you have still had to be healing from each and every single day. There's a reflection and a revision and revisitation, if you will, of old relationship dynamics, because we only attracted those relationship dynamics because of the self-worth that we were at that particular time. Because Venus is doing all of this reflection, we're out in the middle of the emotional ocean, if you will, suddenly thinking about the ex that we were doing this, toxic dance with 15, 20 years ago. Get it up into your awareness now so that when we are finding ourselves swimming towards land, that you can leave all of that energy, all of those memories, all of that reflection out in the middle of the ocean where it belongs. And so we've been definitely going through a lot of upsetting, triggering, activating memories, thoughts, and emotions, especially where our self-worth is concerned and how our self-worth was tied to and continues to tie to the people that we choose to share time, energy, and space with. Now, our central nervous system is definitely going through it again. As I previously mentioned, we're going through a recalibration in order for us to be able to perceive, again, a larger spectrum, if you will, of not only light, but of sound as well. And the central nervous system gets these jolts of energy. And specifically when we talk about Uranus, anytime that I'm talking about Uranus, anytime that he shows up in a forecast, you know that we are going to be inviting more energy into our physical bodies than we're going to be able to physically handle. Thus, why we feel jolted, why we feel, anxiety just kicks in, irritability kicks in, we get a little bit manic. Sure, you can manifest excitability as well, but I don't know about y'all. There hasn't been a whole lot of excitement to kind of, be sitting in. It really does a number on our central nervous system because, again, our soul and our spirit is expanding at a rate that our physical vessel needs to kind of make room for, thus the discomfort in the physical body. So the central nervous system is definitely going to be popping off here this week, especially with that eclipse event, especially because it's in Virgo energy, because the Virgo energy worries, has anxiety like a mofo, okay, has OCD, has that perfectionism within it. And so we're going to be hypersensitive, hyperactive in our inner realm, especially where our headspace and our central nervous system is concerned, because again, we're receiving more light, more information, more awareness now than ever before. And that is going to have a major impact on how it is that we're feeling in our physical body. Let's talk about some of the ways that that can show up. So visually speaking, our eyesight has been a little bit blurry. Think about being in water for as long as we have. Our eyes are starting to burn from, having water in our eyes, especially if it was salt water. There's a little bit of a burning sensation happening there. We can kind of see what's going on in front of us, but there is a little bit of a blurriness, of vagueness taking place as well. Again, with Pisces energy, there's always this level of fog, of confusion that kind of blurs the line, so to speak. We're still sitting in it. That visual energy is creating dots. It's creating flashes, something off of the side of our peripherals. Some people are going to see like sparkles. Some people are going to see the actual like matrix strings. Our visual pattern is changing. And specifically, as we get closer to this eclipse event, we're going to be seeing a lot more from this physical realm and from the unseen realm. Our perspective, our lens is definitely changing. It's almost as if we're getting our eyes tested. And you know how they put the lens in front of one eye and they're like, is it left or right? And then you say left, and then they switch it and it's like left or right. Camera 1, camera 2. Do you like the first one or the second one? We're going through an eye test right now because our visual pattern recognition is increasing. That comes with, more neural activity than anything else. The synapses in our brains connecting the dots, connecting neural pathways in the ways that we haven't even experienced before. And so not only is there a lot going on in our brains and in our headspace, but we're visually seeing changes in our eyeballs. Now, I want to talk about visual changes for a second. And I also want to go back to mirror work. Mirror work is something that a lot of people struggle with. Again, most people cannot continue to look at themselves in their eyeballs and their soul space for more than a minute. It's a very hard thing to do, especially when you are kind of working through your self-confidence, self-worth, self-esteem, which of course we all are with Venus being retrograde at this particular point in time. What I would also want to say is that our physical face is changing. Now, this could be good or this could be bad. Some people are going to look at themselves and be like, oh my goodness, I don't even recognize myself. I look like an old person. Now, there's other people that are going to look at themselves and be like, holy crap, I don't even recognize myself. I'm looking good, right? The one thing that I wanted to bring to your attention, doesn't really matter whether you are identifying whether you're looking old or looking young. I want you to pay attention to the marks on your face. Meaning you could have moles move, you could have blemishes appear, and then disappear. I recently just received 3 beautiful moles or marks on my face, and don't come at me about skin cancer, blah, blah, blah. I have a dermatologist. I'm checked out. I'm fine. This is an Ascension symptom. All the marks in which you have on your body are little rabbit holes anyways. They're all identifier marks from your previous incarnations. And so when we go through timeline jumps, when we go through recalibration, situations and stages like we're currently going through, you can actually see moles or birthmarks or whatever, blemishes, whatever, that you've had your whole life just disappear. And you can also see, marks reappear. I, for one, am on this side of the scale, and I received 3 beautiful in alignment marks to one side of my temple. And I'm not going to go into what that message is because that's personal for me and what's going on for me. But when I say to you that you want to pay attention to the visual markers on your skin, those are going to be changing here this week. And it would be very, very smart of you to take note of that and to do a deep dive in what the significance of the place in which they're appearing is, right side versus left side, where on your body it is, where the emotional or spiritual connection could be. There's a lot to unpack there. We are going to be having skin flare-ups this week. Now, whether that is, reappearing birthmarks or whatever the case may be, it could just be that you're breaking out in different areas of your face or of your body than you normally do. It could be there is a certain rash or a certain patch of dryness that just erupts out of nowhere. A lot of this is because, again, reminder, guys, like the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo energy is a detox energy. It's purging out the emotional and mental and spiritual and physical dysfunction that you've been holding in your body. And so with that, not only is there going to be indicators of that purge happening that erupts on our skin surface, but you're going to have detox symptoms, flu-like symptoms, cold-like symptoms, allergy symptoms. There's all kinds of different ways that your body lets you know that it's purging something. And depending on the level in which you're purging from, that's really going to dictate the physical discomfort that you're going to be experiencing, especially the closer that we get to this full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo energy. One other thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that old injuries, old wounds, not just emotionally, not just mentally, but physically speaking as well, the old injuries are flaring up again. There's a lot of inflammation coming up in the body. Not only are we carrying a lot of water weight because, again, we've been floating in the emotional ocean since Pisces season began, but we have Pisces season really activating all the different parts of self that we had to be up until this particular juncture. They're triggering and activating all of those wounds, all of that pain, all of that trauma, so that we can look at it from a different awareness, a different level of consciousness, a different lens, because there's a repairment going on, preparing us to, again, kind of reemerge when the sun moves into Aries and the spring equinox kicks off and the new astrological calendar kicks off. That's the healed, revamped, repaired version of self. And so old traumas, old wounds creep back up again, specifically at this particular juncture of Pisces season, because we're in the healing energies of Pisces energy. And so again, the first part of Pisces season, we get thrown into the darkness, thrown into the shadow realm. We kind of met that halfway point in Pisces season, which allows us to kind of tap into the good parts of Pisces energy, which is intuition and imagination and creativity and dream work and healing. And we are at this particular juncture, especially as we kind of anticipate getting thrown into that eclipse energy. The Virgo energy is the healer of the zodiac, just as Pisces energy is the healer of the zodiac. The Virgo energy focuses in on the physical body and the mental plane. Pisces energy focuses in on the emotional and spiritual plane. And so there are going to be old injuries that resurface. There are going to be old memories of, let's call it, emotional or mental wounds that resurface. Again, we have Venus already retrograde. Mercury, ruler of the mental plane, will be retrograding with her not only 24 hours after that full moon lunar eclipse peaks, and that is going to definitely throw us back into some of the chapters, some of the experiences, some of the highs, the lows, the everything in between that we we didn't take the time to consciously work through at the time in which they happened, which at this particular juncture, they have to come up in our face in order for us to be aware of them, acknowledge them, integrate them so that we can operate as a complete whole source of energy moving into the new astrological calendar. So the inflammation in our bodies is coming because, again, there are Aries energies being activated. We have fire and water going on in the cosmos right now. And that fire and water, again, there's more water than there is fire. So when you have more water on a fire, we can put that fire out. We need that fire because it's excitement, it's vitality, it's action, it's passion, it's desire. But right now, the Aries energies that are active, we have Venus retrograde in it, Mercury currently direct in it, but will be retrograding in it. And so the heart and the head are going through this major reflection, if you will, to boss ourselves up to who it is that we need to be for this next karmic chapter that we are all getting pretty antsy and anticipating. This inflammation comes from the fire energy, and the inflammation is definitely being felt in our mouths, Mercury in Aries, in our heart space with the heart activations, Venus retrograde in Aries. And because of that, there, again, inflammation, especially on top of old injuries, we definitely are going to need to be revisiting, how maybe you broke your leg or what triggered it, what crisis you were going through, how physical ailments actually manifested out of the emotional and spiritual dysfunction in which you were sitting in. There's a lot of revelations to be had in this last chapter of Pisces season. I want you to pay attention to the acid reflux because, again, the closer we get to that Virgo full moon eclipse, our stomach, our digestive system, going to be whack-a-doodle, as it hasn't been, it has been for the most part. We've been going through this digestive issue thing. It's going to intensify here this week. Whether you have nausea or stomach upset, just put it like it this way. We've been out to sea for so long that the seasickness now is kind of beating our ass down, right? Like it's a hard thing for us to be digesting food in a normal way, for feeling good about it. So the stomach upset, the nausea, the acid reflux, definitely going to be a thing. I would say to double down on, detox remedies, drink lots of water, get oil of oregano, and you get elderberry, and you be doing lymphatic massage, move your body so that your meridians have a chance to be active and flush some of that, not so nice junk and gunk out of your system. We really have to take better care. And because we're on this healing axis, Virgo and Pisces, we really have to address the mind, the body, the soul, and of course, the spirit. They're all connected. They all are messengers. In order for us to kind of get the bigger, broader picture of what needs to be done, we all need to boss up, take much better care of self. So the last thing I'm going to leave you with, and it's something that's been a common Ascension symptom and a common, topic and theme, is the dream state, is the sleep state. Now, again, Pisces season highlights the unconscious, altered state of consciousness. So our dreamscapes have been wackadoodle, very cryptic, very reflective as far as pain and trauma wounds go. If you are waking up between 3 and 5, there is a particular spiritual activation that you are going through and that you need to be woken up at those particular points in time so that you don't fall too deep into that astral realm. Many of us getting kicked out of the astral realm at this particular point in time because, again, there are wars being fought on other dimensions, on other levels that we either A, need to be a part of, and in that case, you are sleeping long and hard and having a very active life in your sleep state, or B, you're not able to sleep, you're not able to kind of stay asleep, and therefore you are trying to be a part of a battle that you're not needed for. That's why you're awake. So the sleep disturbances are definitely going to continue. The dreams being weird as F definitely going to continue as well. But let me also just say this. The night sweats are getting so freaking gross. I know we talked about this. I don't think it was last week. I think it was the week before. But man, if you want to talk about sweating to death at night, whether you're sleeping or not, this is detox at its finest, right? So if you're crying, that's one form of detox. If you're constantly going to the bathroom, which of course should be intense, more intense these days than anything else, because again, we are detoxing. There's an intensity going on in the lower extremities trying to get this shit out of us, literally and figuratively speaking. There is the sweating. Sweating is a huge form of detox. And many of us going through, the stages that repair our physical bodies at night and kind of repair our emotional and spiritual bodies at night. And when you find yourself kind of waking up in a sweat, it is because you are going through such a deep, unconscious, spiritual and emotional and mental purge state that, again, it has no other choice but to sweat it out. And I, for one, cannot wait for this particular energy to pass because I am tired of doing my bedding laundry every other day. That becomes a little bit exhausting all in itself. And I just, I know we're in a water season, but waking up in a emotional pool of water is not favorable either. I, for one, think it's absolutely disgusting. I could not be more grossed out with this human body at those particular points in time. And I, for one, am just looking for this particular energy to shift, which I know it will, but it's not going to happen this week. So guys, I think that's all that I really wanted to cover for this week's Ascension forecast. Again, there's going to be a lot of purging to do, a lot of frustration arising, a lot of emotions that get stirred, a lot of triggers and activations that pop off. Because again, everything needs to rise to the surface of our awareness in order for us to release it, to detach from it, to purge it out of our systems under that full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo energy. So again, just want to remind you that if you need some extra support, if you need validation, confirmation, or some resources, some remedies to kind of, manage your symptoms better, definitely consider jumping over to my Patreon, and I'll do the best that I can to walk you through it over there. Just a reminder, we are not crazy. Okay. And we are not alone. We are all going through this together. Another reason why I encourage you to kind of be open, real, raw, and vulnerable here in the comment section. The comment section. I almost made it through a whole forecast without marbles in my mouth. Not winning the award this week either for that. Anywho, what I'm saying is that when you share, when you're open, real, raw, and vulnerable and transparent with the struggles that you're going through, and you drop that in the comment section below, you reassure someone else going through something very similar that they're not alone. And we have to double down. We have to work extra hard to stay connected and to reassure each other that, again, we got this. When we link arms, spiritually and energetically speaking, we can get through anything. So I thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for tuning in, for sharing your time, your energy, your space, not only with me, but with all of the beautiful people here in this community. I want to thank you not only for showing up for me, but again, for showing up for yourself. I hope you have the, I'm going to say, easiest, hardest week of your life. We all know it's going to be a little bit difficult, a little bit choppy out there, but if we can keep a positive mindset and surrender, be flexible, and go with the flow, it may not be as hard as it needs to be. I'm sending you so much love, and we'll talk to you soon.